education in the United States. Education in the United States is provided by public, private, and home schools. State governments set overall educational standards, often mandate standardized tests for K-12 public school systems, and supervise, usually through a board of regents, state colleges and universities. Funding comes from the state, local, and federal government. For private schools are generally free to determine their own curriculum and staffing policies, with voluntary accreditation available through independent regional accreditation authorities. About 87% of school-age children attend public schools, about 10% attend private schools, and roughly 3% are homeschooled. 6. Education is compulsory over an age range starting between 5 and 8 and ending somewhere between ages 16 and 18, depending on the state. This requirement can be satisfied in public schools, state-certified private schools, or an approved homeschool program. In most schools, education is divided into 3 levels: elementary school, middle or junior high school, and high school. Children are usually divided by age groups into grades, ranging from kindergarten and first grade for the youngest children, up to 12th grade as the final year of high school. There are also a large number and wide variety of publicly and privately administered institutions of higher education throughout the country. Post-secondary education, divided into college, as the first tertiary degree, and graduate school, is described in a separate section below. The United States spends more per student on education than any other country. In 2014, the Pearson/Economist Intelligence Unit rated U.S. education as 14th best in the world, just behind Russia. According to a report published by the U.S. News & World Report, of the top 10 colleges and universities in the world, 8 are American. Government-supported and free public schools for all began to be established after the American Revolution. Between 1750 and 1870, parochial schools appeared as ad hoc efforts by parishes. Historically, many parochial elementary schools were developed which were open to all children in the parish, mainly Catholics, but also Lutherans, Calvinists and Orthodox Jews. Non-sectarian common schools designed by Horace Mann were opened, which taught the 3 R's of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and also history and geography. In 1823, Reverend Samuel Red Hall founded the first normal school, the Columbian School in Concord, Vermont 1112 to improve the quality of the burgeoning common school system by producing more qualified teachers. States passed laws to make schooling compulsory between 1852 Massachusetts and 1917 Mississippi. They also used federal funding designated by the Morrill Land-Grant Colleges Acts of 1862 and 1890 to set up land-grant colleges specializing in agriculture and engineering. By 1870, every state had free elementary schools, 13 albeit only in urban centers. Starting from about 1876, 39 states passed a constitutional amendment to their state constitutions, called Blaine Amendments after James G. Blaine, one of their chief promoters, forbidding the use of public tax money to fund local parochial schools. Following the American Civil War, the Tuskegee Normal and Industrial Institute was founded in 1881, in Tuskegee, Alabama, to train colored teachers, led by Booker T. Washington, 1856 to 1915, who was himself a freed slave. His movement spread to many other southern states to establish small colleges for colored or Negro students entitled A&M, Agricultural and Mechanical, or A&T, Agricultural and Technical, some of which later developed into state universities. Responding to many competing academic philosophies being promoted at the time, an influential working group of educators, known as the Committee of 10, and established in 1892 by the National Education Association, recommended that children should receive 12 years of instruction, consisting of 8 years of elementary education, also known as grammar schools, followed by 4 years in high school, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors. Gradually, by the late 1890s, regional associations of high schools, colleges and universities were being organized to coordinate proper accrediting standards, examinations and regular surveys of various institutions to assure equal treatment in graduation and admissions requirements, course completion and transfer procedures. By 1910, 72% of children attended school. Private schools spread during this time, as well as colleges and, in the rural centers, land-grant colleges also. Between 1910 and 1940, the high school movement resulted in rapidly increasing public high school enrollment and graduations. By 1930, 100% of children attended school. Citation needed excluding children with significant disabilities or medical concerns. 14 During World War II, enrollment in high schools and colleges plunged as many high school and college students dropped out to take war jobs. 15 16 17 The 1946 National School Lunch Act, which is still in operation, provided low-cost or free school lunch meals to qualified low-income students through subsidies to schools, based on the idea that a full stomach during the day supported class attention and studying. The 1954 Supreme Court case Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas made racial desegregation of public elementary and high schools mandatory, although private schools expanded in response to accommodate white families attempting to avoid desegregation by sending their children to private secular or religious schools. 18-19-20 In 1965, the Far-Reaching Elementary and Secondary Education Act (SEA) passed as a part of President Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty, provided funds for primary and secondary education Title I funding while explicitly forbidding the establishment of a national curriculum. 21 Section IV of the Act created the Pell Grant program, which provides financial support to students from low-income families to access higher education. In 1975, the Education for All Handicapped Children Act established funding for special education in schools. Policy changes have also sometimes slowed equal access to higher education for poorer people. Cuts to the Pell Grant scholarship aid programs in 2012 reduced the number of low-income students who would receive grants. 22 The Elementary and Secondary Education Act of 1965 made standardized testing a requirement. The Higher Education Amendments of 1972 made changes to the Pell Grants. The 1975 Education for All Handicapped Children Act (EHA) required all public schools accepting federal funds to provide equal access to education and one free meal a day for children with physical and mental disabilities. The 1983 National Commission on Excellence in Education report, famously titled "The Nation at Risk," touched off a wave of local, state, and federal reform efforts. But by 1990 the country still only spent 2% of its budget on education, compared with 30% on support for the elderly. 23 In 1990, the EHA was replaced with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act idea, which placed more focus on students as individuals, and also provided for more post-high school transition services. The 2002 No Child Left Behind, passed by a bipartisan coalition in Congress, provided federal aid to the states in exchange for measures to penalize schools that were not meeting the goals as measured by standardized state exams in mathematics and language skills. 24 25 26 In the same year, the U.S. Supreme Court eluded some of the century-old Lane laws, upheld an Ohio law allowing aid to parochial schools under specific circumstances. 27 The 2006 Commission on the Future of Higher Education evaluated higher education. In December 2015, President Barack Obama signed legislation replacing No Child Left Behind with the Every Student Succeeds Act. 28 Statistics edit In 2000, 76.6 million students had enrolled in schools from kindergarten through graduate schools. Of these, 72% ages 12 to 17 were considered academically on track for their age, i.e. enrolled in that or above grade level. Of those enrolled elementary and secondary schools, 5.2 million 10.4% attended private schools. Citation needed Over 85% of the adult population have completed high school and 27% have received a bachelor's degree or higher. The average salary for college or university graduates is greater than $51,000, exceeding the national average of those without a high school diploma by more than $23,000, according to a 2005 study by the U.S. Census Bureau. 29 The 2010 unemployment rate for high school graduates was 10.8%, the rate for college graduates was 4.9%. 30 The country has a reading literacy rate of 99% of the population over age 15. 31 While ranking below average in science and mathematics understanding compared to other developed countries. 32 In 2014, the record high of 82% of high school seniors graduated, although one of the reasons for that success might be a decline in academic standards. 33 The poor performance has pushed public and private efforts such as the No Child Left Behind Act. In addition, The ratio of college-educated adults entering the workforce to general population 33% is slightly below the mean of other developed countries 35% 34% and rate of participation of the labor force in continuing education is high. 35 The 2000s decade study by John Miller of Michigan State University concluded that a slightly higher proportion of American adults qualify as scientifically literate than European or Japanese adults. 36 According to the National Association of School Nurses, 17% of students are considered obese and 32% are overweight. 37 In 2006, there were roughly 600,000 homeless students in the United States, but after the Great Recession this number more than doubled to approximately 1.36 million. 38 Educational stages. Formal education in the U.S. is divided into a number of distinct educational stages. Most children enter the public education system around ages 5 or 6. Children are assigned into year groups known as grades. The American school year traditionally begins at the end of August or the day after Labor Day in September, after a traditional summer recess. Children customarily advance together from one grade to the next as a single cohort or class upon reaching the end of each school year in late May or early June. Depending upon their circumstances, they may begin school in pre-kindergarten, kindergarten or first grade. They normally attend 12 grades of study over 12 calendar years of primary/elementary and secondary education before graduating, earning the diploma that makes them eligible for admission to higher education. Education is mandatory until age 16-18 in some states. In the U.S., ordinal numbers e.g., first grade are used for identifying grades. Typical ages and grade groupings in contemporary, public and private schools may be found through the U.S. Department of Education. Generally there are 3 stages: elementary school K5-Th/6th grade, middle school 6th-7th-8th grades and high school 9th to 12th grades. 39 Some schools differ in the grades they contain. Students completing high school may choose to attend a college or university, which offer undergraduate degrees such as associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees. Baccalaureate. Community college or junior college typically offer 2-year associate degrees, although some community colleges offer a limited number of bachelor's degrees. Some community college students choose to transfer to a 4-year institution to pursue a bachelor's degree. Community colleges are generally publicly funded, usually by local cities or counties, and offer career certifications and part-time programs. 4-year institutions may be public or private colleges or universities. Some counties and cities have established and funded 4-year institutions. Some of these institutions, such as the City University of New York, City Colleges of Chicago, and San Francisco City College, are still operated by local governments. Others, such as the University of Louisville and Wichita State University, are now operated as state universities. Private institutions are privately funded, and there is a wide variety in size, focus, and operation. Some private institutions are large research universities, while others are small liberal arts colleges that concentrate on undergraduate education. Some private universities are non-sectarian and secular, while others are religiously affiliated. While most private institutions are non-profit, a growing number in the past decade have been established as for-profit. Curriculum varies widely depending on the institution. Typically, an undergraduate student will be able to select an academic major or concentration, which comprises the main or special subjects, and students may change their major 1 or more times. Some students, typically those with a bachelor's degree, may choose to continue on to graduate or professional school, sometimes attached to a university. Graduate degrees may be either master's degrees, e.g., MA, MS, MBA, MSW, or a doctorate's, e.g., Ph.D., J.D., Doctor of Law, M.D., D.O. Programs range from full-time, evening and executive, which allows for flexibility with student schedules. 40 Academia-focused graduate school typically includes some combination of coursework and research, often requiring a thesis or dissertation to be written, while professional graduate level schools grants a first professional degree. These include medical, law, business, education, divinity, art, journalism, social work, architecture, and engineering schools. Variations of it in K-12 education. Sometimes students who receive failing grades are held back a year and repeat coursework in the hope of earning satisfactory scores on the second try. High school graduates sometimes take a gap year before the first year of college, for travel, work, public service, or independent learning. Of students who were freshmen in 2005 seeking bachelor's degrees at public institutions, 32% took 4 years, 12% took 5 years, 6% took 6 years, and 43% did not graduate within 6 years. The numbers for private nonprofit institutions were 52% in 4, 10% in 5, 4% in 6, and 35% failing to graduate. 41 Some undergraduate institutions offer an accelerated 3-year bachelor's degree, or a combined 5-year bachelor's and master's degrees. Many graduate students do not start professional schools immediately after finishing undergraduate studies, but work for a time while saving up money or deciding on a career direction. The National Center for Education Statistics found that in 1999 to 2000, 73% of people attending institutions of higher education were non-traditional students. 42 K-12 education EdIT schooling is compulsory for all children in the United States, but the age range for which school attendance is required varies from state to state. Some states allow students to leave school between 14 to 17 with parental permission, before finishing high school. Other states require students to stay in school until age 18. 43 Public free education is typically from kindergarten to grade 12, frequently abbreviated K-12. Most parents send their children to either a public or private institution. According to government data, 1/10 of students are enrolled in private schools. Approximately 85% of students enter the public schools. 44 Largely because they are tax-subsidized. Tax burdens by school districts vary from area to area. School districts are usually separate from other local jurisdictions, with independent officials and budgets. There are more than 14,000 school districts in the country. 45 And more than $500 billion is spent each year on public primary and secondary education. 45 Most states require that their school districts within the state teach for 180 days a year. 46 In 2010, there were 3,823,142 teachers in public, charter, private, and Catholic elementary and secondary schools. They taught a total of 55,203,000 students, who attended one of 132,656 schools. 47 Most children begin elementary education with kindergarten, usually 5 to 6 years old, and finish secondary education with 12th grade, usually 17 to 18 years old. In some cases, pupils may be promoted beyond the next regular grade. Parents may also choose to educate their own children at home. 1.7% of children are educated in this manner. 44 Clarification needed. Around 3 million students between the ages of 16 and 24 drop out of high school each year, a rate of 6.6% as of 2012. Citation needed. In the United States, 75% of crimes are committed by high school dropouts. Around 60% of black dropouts end up spending time incarcerated. 48 The incarceration rate for African American male high school dropouts was about 50 times the national average as of 2010. 49 States do not require reporting from their school districts to allow analysis of efficiency of return on investment. The Center for American Progress commends Florida and Texas as the only two states that provide annual school-level productivity evaluations which report to the public how well school funds are being spent at the local level. This allows for comparison of school districts within a state. 50-51 In 2010, American students ranked 17th in the world. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development says that this is due to focusing on the low end of performers. All of the recent gains have been made, deliberately, at the low end of the socio-economic scale and among the lowest achievers. The country has been outrun, the study says, by other nations because the U.S. has not done enough to encourage the highest achievers. 52 About half of the states encourage schools to recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. 53 Teachers worked from about 35 to 46 hours a week. In the survey taken in 1993. 54 In 2011, American teachers worked 1,097 hours in the classroom, the most for any industrialized nation measured by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They spend 1,913 hours a year on their work, just below the national average of 1,932 hours for all workers. 55 In 2011, The average annual salary of a Pre-12 teacher was $55,040.56. Transporting students to and from school is a major concern for most school districts. School buses provide the largest mass transit program in the country, 8.8 billion trips per year. Non-school transit buses give 5.2 billion trips annually. 440,000 yellow school buses carry over 24 million students to and from schools. 57 In 1971, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that forced busing of students may be ordered to achieve racial desegregation. 58 This ruling resulted in a white flight from the inner cities which largely diluted the intent of the order. This flight had other, non-educational ramifications as well. Integration took place in most schools, though de facto segregation often determined the composition of the student body. By the 1990s, most areas of the country have been released from mandatory busing. School start times are computed with busing in mind. There are often 3 start times: for elementary, for middle/junior high school, and for high school. One school district computed its cost per bus without the driver at $20,575 annually. It assumed a model where the average driver drove 80 miles per day. A driver was presumed to cost $0.62 per mile, 1.6 kilometers. Elementary schools started at 7:30, middle schools/junior high school started at 8:30, and high schools at 8:15. While elementary schools started earlier, they also finish earlier, at 2:30. Middle schools at 3:30 and high schools at 3:20. 59 All school districts establish their own times and means of transportation within guidelines set by their own state. Preschool and pre-kindergarten. Edit main article. Pre-kindergarten preschool encompasses non-compulsory classroom-based early childhood education prior to the age of 5 to 6. Pre-kindergarten, also called pre-K or PARK, is the preschool year immediately studied before the year of kindergarten, which is typically studied at age 5 to 6. Preschool education may be delivered through a preschool or as a reception year in elementary school. Head Start program, the federally funded pre-kindergarten program founded in 1965, prepares children, especially those of a disadvantaged population, to better succeed in school. However, limited seats are available to students aspiring to take part in the Head Start program. Many community-based programs, commercial enterprises, non-profit organizations, faith communities, and independent child care providers offer preschool education. Preschool may be general or may have a particular focus, such as arts education, religious education, sports training, or foreign language learning, along with providing general education. Primary education. Edit main article. Primary education in the United States. The teacher and her students in an elementary school classroom. Historically, in the United States, local public control and private alternatives have allowed for some variation in the organization of schools. Elementary school includes kindergarten through 6th grade or sometimes, to 4th grade, 5th grade or 8th grade. Basic subjects are taught in elementary school, and students often remain in one classroom throughout the school day, except for specialized programs, such as physical education, library, music, and art classes. There are, as of 2001, about 3.6 million children in each grade in the United States. 60 Typically, the curriculum in public elementary education is determined by individual school districts or county school system. The school district selects curriculum guides and textbooks that reflect the state's learning standards and benchmarks for a given grade level. The most recent curriculum that has been adopted by most states is Common Core. 61 Learning standards are the goals by which states and school districts must meet adequate yearly progress (AYP) as mandated by No Child Left Behind and CLB. This description of school governance is simplistic at best, however, and school systems vary widely not only in the way curricular decisions are made but also in how teaching and learning take place. Some states and/or school districts impose more top-down mandates than others. In others, teachers play a significant role in curriculum design and there are few top-down mandates. Curricular decisions within private schools are often made differently from in public schools, and in most cases without consideration of NCLB. Public elementary school teachers typically instruct between 20 and 30 students of diverse learning needs. A typical classroom will include children with a range of learning needs or abilities, from those identified as having special needs of the kinds listed in the Individuals with Disabilities Act idea to those that are cognitively, athletically or artistically gifted. At times, An individual school district identifies areas of need within the curriculum. Teachers and advisory administrators form committees to develop supplemental materials to support learning for diverse learners and to identify enrichment for textbooks. There are special education teachers working with the identified students. Many school districts post information about the curriculum and supplemental materials on websites for public access. 62 In general, a student learns basic arithmetic and sometimes rudimentary algebra in mathematics, English proficiency such as basic grammar, spelling, and vocabulary, and fundamentals of other subjects. Learning standards are identified for all areas of a curriculum by individual states, including those for mathematics, social studies, science, physical development, the fine arts, and reading. 61 While the concept of state learning standards has been around for some time, No Child Left Behind has mandated that standards exist at the state level. Secondary Education Edit High School Senior 12th Grade Classroom in Calhoun, Colorado. Main article, Secondary Education in the United States. Secondary education is often divided into two phases, middle/junior high school and high school. Students are usually given more independence, moving to different classrooms for different subjects, and being allowed to choose some of their class subjects' electives. Citation needed. Middle school or junior high school has a variable range between districts. It usually includes 7th and 8th grades and occasionally also includes one or more of the 6th, 9th, and very occasionally 5th grades as well. High school occasionally senior high school includes grades 9 through 12. Students in these grades are commonly referred to as freshmen grade 9, sophomores grade 10, juniors grade 11 and seniors grade 12. At the high school level, students generally take a broad variety of classes without specializing in any particular subject, with the exception of vocational schools. Students are generally required to take a broad range of mandatory subjects, but may choose additional subjects electives to fill out their required hours of learning. High school grades normally are included in a student's official transcript, e.g. for college admission. Citation needed. Each state sets minimum requirements for how many years of various mandatory subjects are required. These requirements vary widely, but generally include 2 to 4 years of each of science, mathematics, English, social sciences, physical education. Some years of a foreign language and some form of art education are often also required, as is a health curriculum in which students learn about anatomy, nutrition, first aid, sexuality, drug awareness, and birth control. In many cases, however, options are provided for students to test out of this requirement or complete independent study to meet it. Citation needed. Many high schools provide honors, advanced placement AP or international baccalaureate IB courses. These are special forms of honors classes where the curriculum is more challenging and lessons more aggressively paced than standard courses. Honors, AP or IB courses are usually taken during the 11th or 12th grade of high school, but may be taken as early as 9th grade. Some international schools offer international school leaving qualifications, to be studied for and awarded instead of or alongside of the high school diploma, honors, advanced placement, or international baccalaureate. Regular honors courses are more intense and faster paced than typical college preparatory courses. Citation needed. AP and IB, on the other hand, are college-level classes. Citation needed. Grading scale edit. In schools in the United States, children are assessed throughout the school year by their teachers, and report cards are issued to parents at varying intervals. Generally, the scores for individual assignments and tests are recorded for each student in a gradebook, along with the maximum number of points for each assignment. End of term or YEAR evaluations are most frequently given in the form of a letter grade on an AF scale, whereby A is the best possible grade and F is a failing grade. Most schools do not include the letter E in the assessment scale, or a numeric percentage. The Waldorf schools 63/60 for most Democratic schools 65 and some other private schools, give often extensive verbal characterizations of student progress rather than letter or number grades. Standardized testing edit. See also, test student assessment under the No Child Left Behind Act and Every Student Succeeds Acts. All American states must test students in public schools statewide to ensure that they are achieving the desired level of minimum education. 66 Such as on the New York Regency examinations, the Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test FCAT, or the Massachusetts Comprehensive Assessment System MCAS. Students being educated at home or in private schools are not included. The Act also required that students and schools show adequate yearly progress. This means they must show some improvement each year. When a student fails to make adequate yearly progress, NCLB mandated that remediation through summer school and/or tutoring be made available to a student in need of extra help. On December 10, 2015, President Barack Obama signed legislation replacing SCLB with the Every Student Succeeds Act ESSA. 28. However, the enactment of ESSA did not eliminate provisions relating to the periodic standardized tests given to students. 6768 Academic performance impacts the perception of a school's educational program. Rural schools fare better than their urban counterparts in two key areas: test scores and dropout rate. First, students in small schools performed equal to or better than their larger school counterparts. 69 In addition, on the 2005 National Assessment of Education Progress, 4th and A grade students scored as well or better in reading, science, and mathematics. 70 During high school, students usually in 11th grade may take one or more standardized tests depending on their post-secondary education preferences and their local graduation requirements. In theory, these tests evaluate the overall level of knowledge and learning aptitude of the students,